Have you seen me dice bag? The Grognard Files.
Hello, my name is Dirk the Dice, and this is the Grognard Files podcast, where we talk bobbins about tabletop RPGs from back in the day and today. I'm coming live from my den here in the heart of the northwest of England, and I'm completely and utterly and infuriatingly surrounded by my stuff. Everywhere I look, there's bits and bobs that I've pulled out over the last couple of months and not put away. It's gone a bit crazy. In fact, I've not been able to sit at this desk. Here on my right is the Great Library of RPGs, and here on my left is the ridiculous homemade shrine to the actor Caroline Munro. I'll just give a tap. Ah, yes, she's appeared in a wetsuit for the Lamb's Navy Rum adverts. Well, that's because we are feeling the spirit of adventure. Over the past couple of months, we've played an impossible number of games, nearly every other night, due to one thing and another. We've been to conventions, symposiums, and in this episode, I'm joined by our resident rules lawyer, Judge Blythe, and we reflect on the games that we've been playing in September. But first, I'm joined in the Zoom of role-playing rambling by Graham Bottley, Arion Games, which has recently celebrated its 20th anniversary. And he talks about adventures in advanced fighting fantasy and Maelstrom. It really is a busy one, this one, so if you stay to the end, I'll give you a bit more information about how you can get some more of it. But until then, ramblers, let's get rambling.
Open box.
Welcome to the Zoom of Role-Playing Rambling, to Open Box, the part of the podcast where we look backwards to look forwards. Our gaming of the past informs the gaming of today. And I'm joined by game designer and publisher Graham Bottley of Arion Games. Hello there, Graham.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
And whereabouts in the world are you, Graham?
So I'm based in North Yorkshire, in Wensleydale, just on the very edge of the Yorkshire Dales, but in a very rural area.
Have you always been a gamer?
Since I was 9, yes. I'd always been fascinated with fantasy literature. The Hobbit was one of the earliest books I remember being read as a child, and it had always fascinated me. And I'd grown up with all these fantasy books. And then my father went away to work one day, and as often happens in that sort of situation, he brought a present back, because working away all week, come back and you feel slightly guilty, so you bring a present. And he brought me this book, and he said, I found this in a bookshop, he said, but I don't really understand it. I thought you might enjoy it, and handed me a copy of Forest of Doom. And I looked at it and opened it up and thought, there's numbers everywhere. What's this? No idea. That evening I sat down and read it. I probably, even though I was about 9, I probably didn't go to bed till about midnight because I was reading it under the covers with a torch. And the next day I did it again and again and again. And my father said, you're absolutely obsessed with that thing. I said, yeah. I said, were there any more? He said, I think there were. And then the next time he came back, it was Warlock of Firetop Mountain, and that's what started things. That really grabbed a bit of my attention that novels never could. Because with a novel, I'd always expanded the universe within my own brain. I'd always read The Hobbit, and I tried to imagine what was happening over that hill that they passed. What was happening behind those mountains? This town that was mentioned, what happened there? I was trying to build this world within my brain. All of a sudden, I had the option to go further with these game books. And that started me off. And then 6 months later, for Christmas, I got the Red Box D&D. That was the start of my role-playing career.
So who were you playing with at the time?
I had a group of school friends. One of them is now in quite a big thrash metal band. I don't know if you've ever heard of Cradle of Filth.
Oh, yeah.
So Danny, the lead singer, so his father worked with my father. They played cricket together, and he lived 100 yards or so away. And in fact, his is the earliest D&D memory I have of my character being killed by a cow kill spell in his room, in his house there. So, and indeed, we even had like a club at school. Most of the people in the club are still part of my gaming group even now. Danny actually did the illustrations for this little magazine we did. It had Warhammer in it, and it had Fighting Fantasy and so on.
Just going back to Fighting Fantasy, what do you think it is that's so enduring about, though, particularly those first few adventures, and particularly the fantasy ones?
I think there's two elements to it. One element is they were very classic. By classic, what I mean is the Warlock of Firetop Mountain is a very classic dungeon crawl. You've got 10-foot by 10-foot rooms with an orc sitting with a pint, and it's very mixed up, and it's very classic in that old-fashioned sense, in that you've got one room with a vampire, and then you walk through that, and the next room's got a troll. Well, can't seem getting on too well next to each other, but they did. You've got things that you need to collect to get you past traps later, and so it was very typal dungeon crawl. Forest of Doom was very archetypal wilderness adventure. City of Thieves was very archetypal urban adventure. And I don't think, I'll have to ask Ian next time I speak to him, but I don't think that was accidental. I think because they had brought D&D over, and of course they were very instrumental in the TSR UK publications, that's what their background was. Those archetypal adventures. And I think what they did was they thought, how can we make the most archetypal dungeon crawl? And they turned it into that first game book. So I think there's that, because it has all the elements you want in there. But I think also the art was absolutely critical. It really set the tone. People like Russ Nicholson, his art, and John Blanche, with the Sorcery series. You look at those pictures, and I imagine there's many, many, many people my age who, if you showed them one of those pictures now, it would give them an immediate flashback to when they were very young. And if I pick up Chamois Tanty Hills now and shut my eyes, look at the picture, shut my eyes, I am still sat on the floor of my parents' house with the Saturday wrestling on the TV, in the back room that was dining room stroke sort of second sitting room. And I'm sat on the floor there with the wrestling on the TV going through the Chamois Tanty Hills, because it is embedded in my brain because of the art. And I think that's key.
The art, and there is something about those Steve Jackson ones that were quite innovative as well, weren't they? Because they use of spells. So Citadel of Chaos, I always like that one, because there's also a bit of weirdness that the Ian Livingstone ones didn't necessarily have.
What it was, apparently, is that Steve had been traveling in Nepal, and a lot of the names are very Nepal influenced. And if you look at a lot of the art of the villages, they're not the right way to put it. They're not Western. You look at the Alancia, you look at a lot of the art for that is very Western classic fantasy. It's the typical D&D fantasy. The clothing, the styles, the buildings of the Sorcery series are completely alien, and I think that's what really gave it its charm, because not only was this an alien world, but it looked completely different to anything we'd seen before. And obviously, I say John Blanche's art is otherworldly anyway. That element of complete fantasy.
I think entering the Sorcery ones, because you knew as you were going into them that there were going to be multiple volumes of it, it felt epic, and you knew when you were starting the Chamois Tanty Hills that you were going to be there for a while. And
absolutely. And I got that as a box set with the Sorcery Spellbook and the Chamois Tanty Hills. And then as soon as the next ones came out, and again, it was almost like watching the blockbuster film. So, when you watch Star Wars and then they say, and then Empire Strikes Back, you can't wait for Empire Strikes Back to come out. And with this, you did Chamois Tanty Hills, and you were desperate for the next book to come out so you could undertake the next part of that epic journey. And from a marketing point of view, that was an absolute genius move, I think. So
I think as well, for me, the fact that it was a Penguin imprint rather than a Puffin imprint gave it an elevated status.
It felt a little bit more grown up.
Yeah.
Some of them, and that sounds terrible, and I don't want anyone, especially if you watch this, whatever, to think that the Fighting Fantasy, the Greenspine ones, were in any way childish. They weren't. But the sorcery one, it felt slightly like when you're a kid and you watch a program after 9 o'clock when you're quite small, and you're allowed to. I was allowed to stay up and watch Blackadder, the very first series, and that felt a little bit daring because when you're 11 and 12, you don't quite get all the jokes, but you know it's a bit rude, and you know you're probably not supposed to be staying up, but you are. And in a way, the sorcery books are a bit like that. They felt a little bit adult and a little bit secretive for kids to feel that bit grown up. So
Yes. Yeah. And so Arion Games, you've formed that, and you've gone on to adapt many of these as a publisher. So what's the process there? How did that happen, and what's been the process of doing that, creating advanced fighting fantasy versions of these?
So I started Arion Games 20 years ago this year. So July was our 20th anniversary celebration. We started off just doing paper miniatures, but in about 2010, I was at a games convention on the South Coast. It's hasn't run for quite a few years, and it was held in a holiday complex. And it was one of these gaming conventions where I'd go along to sell stuff, and if I sold £200 worth, I'd actually consider myself really lucky, because it had quite a lot of people attending, but it was one of these where the games would start and you would speak to no one for the next 3 hours. And then the games would start to finish for lunch. And then you'd also speak to a whole load of people. And then an hour later, they'd ring a bell and say, right, roll call for this game, and everyone would just vanish again. But it was quite good because I used to run some games there and so on. We'd published Maelstrom, and so we'd already started publishing role-playing game. And the person who was next to me on their stand was from a company called Greywood Publishing, and I'd worked with him a little bit. He was at the time publishing, or had published, D20 conversions of Warlock, Firetop Mountain, Forest of Doom, a couple of the sorcery ones, and Death Trap Dungeon, I think. I said to him at this convention, what I'd really love to do? I'd love to do a new version of Advanced Fighting Fantasy. And he said, I can give you Steve's email address if you like. And I said, he'll probably say no, but, nothing ventured, nothing gained, I think. And so I took the email address and I sent off an email to Steve. And there was very much this fanboy bit where I knew that his books and Ian's books had been such a massive part of my childhood and my adolescence, and indeed my adult life. And here I was writing to him, and but I wrote him an email and said, look, loved it, love to do a second version. And he wrote back and said, we're only after serious submissions. So we had some meetings and we talked and various things. And eventually they realized I was serious, and I got issued a license. And I thought, fantastic, because I had to rewrite the core rulebook, but I was also going to republish Titan and republish Out the Pit. Because again, those two source books were a massive part of my childhood. They are such good quality. It seemed ridiculous to publish AFL. And I knew there were a lot of extant copies out there because they sold a lot of copies. I thought, let's do it. So we rewrote the rules, did the layout. And to begin with, I partnered with Cubicle 7, who obviously are a big name. Angus was running it at that point. I spoke to Angus, and he said, look, we can partner to print the books for you. Because at that stage, there was no print on demand option. You either print and get it into shops, or you don't. And even PDF copies weren't really a big thing then. And at that stage, my license didn't allow PDF anyway. So I partnered with Angus. They printed them. And, indeed, you look at the back of a lot of the early books, you can see a Cubicle 7 logo. We did that for a few of the books, but then they started moving into Warhammer and their own rules, and they had quite a lot of titles and so on. And I then took it back in-house, and we got the PDS and print on demand. And that was best part of 15 years ago now. And we're working on the 34th book in the series, plus a whole load of PDF adventures and miniatures and maps and Japanese translations and French translations and all sorts. So it just snowballed from there.
I started with Warlock of Fire at Top Mountain, but I was already a role player, and I got into them. I got into the solo books, but my friends who I was playing with didn't necessarily. But that transition from the solo books to turn it into a role-playing game comes with some difficulties, doesn't it? I always encountered that when I wanted to run it as a role-playing game.
So the original version of Advanced Fighting Fantasy, written by Mark Gascoigne and Pete Tamlin, and it's worth mentioning that Mark is now the brand manager for Fighting Fantasy. So he's had a very successful career in publishing, and he's come back to be the Fighting Fantasy brand manager. So, in fact, I had a chat with him a few days ago about various things. The role-playing game they wrote was very true to the game books. So you've still got the D6 plus 6 for skill, 2d6 plus 12 for stamina, d6 plus 6 for luck. For a game book, that works brilliantly because it means you pick up a copy of a game book and you create a new character. And if you've got 7 skill, 15 stamina, 8 luck, you are going to have a tough time. But you know you're going to have a tough time. And it's very much a challenge. It's, can I do it with this very poor character? You roll 12, 24, 12, if you're ever lucky enough to do that. It's a breeze. Now, the thing is that works for a game book, firstly, because it's just you. And secondly, because when you finish that game book, you create another character. With an RPG, if you've got Bob, whose character has 12 skill and 22 stamina, and then you've got Rob, whose character has got 7 skill and 14 stamina, Bob is doing everything. Rob's character follows around and says, do you want me to hold the torch while you go and fight the enemies? Okay. Give me a shout and the fight's done. And it gets boring because Rob can get killed by a goblin and Bob can defeat dragons quite simply. So that doesn't quite work. There's no armor system in Fighting Fantasy. And actually, it was very, very recently I found out why not. So in the Riddling Reaver book, which was the first attempt at turning it into an RPG, they put in variable damage using a little damage track. So your damage track might be 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4 for sword. So you roll a 1 on the dice, you do 2 damage, you roll a 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's 3 damage, and a 6 is 4. So they wanted variable damage. But the reason there's no real armor rule actually comes from the original Russ Nicholson art. Is all scraps of armor, bit of leather on the shoulder, little bit of chain hanging from it, some leather straps here, a little plate strapped on here. So a lot of Russ's art is not formal armor, a suit of chainmail or plate or whatever. It's scraps. And so they didn't want initially there to be an armor mechanic because of how the armor was depicted. When I'm adapting it 2011, modern role players expect an armor mechanic of some sort. They don't expect a hand wavy, well, you've got a bit of armor and it sort of applies, but near enough. So I had to put an armor mechanic in. You had a couple of rules errors, things that any role player now would look at and go, aha. So you cast spells by deducting stamina, that's fucking sorcery. But you had a spell called Stamina. It restored your stamina to its original level. Now, for any modern role player, they're going, well, I'll be a mage. Because cast, stamina, right. Cast. So that loophole had to be fixed. And priests had the same spells as wizards. Things like this. And I think the original instructions to create the role-playing game were turn the game books into an RPG directly. And in that respect, they did it absolutely. If you're going to take it as an RPG on its own, I think it just needed that little bit of extra work.
I've got my copy of Riddling Reaver here.
There is still some discussion about getting that turned into a second edition supplement. There's been some discussion with Paul Mason about that and see if we can get that updated and so on, expanded.
Because the other feature, I guess, is about adventure design, isn't it? Because the game books are definition of certain tracks that you go along. I think when I was trying to adapt them back in the day, there was a temptation to follow that pattern of trying to have a series of set outcomes based on decisions.
It is a tricky one. One of the criticisms in reviews of Shami Tanti-Hill, of the Crown of Kings source book we did, is too linear, not enough options for people to do. Now, actually, I think it's not are particularly linear because you can go this way round, you can go this way round, you can go this way through the city or that way or whatever. But it is a potential problem. And I'm finishing off the Dwarven Halls campaign at the moment. That's quite branching. That's got lots of options with things people can do. Equally, Brett, in the Eye of the Dragon, he adapted this from both the game book and the original Dicing with Dragons book by Ian Livingstone that predated Fighting Fantasy. There was an adventure in there called Eye of the Dragon that later became the game book. What is actually done in here is he's put a random dungeon generator, in a way partly adapted from the Adventure Creator, which is sort of our solo source book. But what it does is it means a GM doesn't just have to have these linear paths through the dungeon. They can create almost like a maze. But because you've then got a table, and I'm not going to go into loads of detail about how he did it, but there's quite an interesting mechanic in here that means you get most of the encounters, but you get the harder ones later. What it means is, as a GM, if your players are familiar with the game book, you don't want them to know the way through. Equally, the maps, as per the game book, are very linear. And you didn't just want to go along a corridor in this door, out along the corridor in the next door, or almost like you're walking along a row of shops and going into every one. To put in the random generator means you've then got the whole mixing up and the non-linear aspect of an RPG adventure with the more linear aspect of the game books.
Oh, and so that's a new release, is it?
So the PDF came out a few weeks ago. This is the hardcover. The soft cover, I'm hoping, will arrive in the post tomorrow. And when it does, that will go up for sale. But yeah, this is very, very new.
Excellent. And of course, that original adventure is what inspired Fighting Fantasy in the first place, isn't it? Because that's what Huffing saw, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
You mentioned earlier that you actually started with Maelstrom. So
yeah.
So people who don't know Maelstrom, you just explain what that is and how that fits in.
When the game books were doing incredibly well, so Steve and Ian wrote the first few, and they were doing so well, they were basically selling out a print run before the print run had actually arrived in the warehouse. And they were selling insane numbers, hundreds of thousands a month around the world. Now, of course, if you're the publisher, you're going ka-ching. Fantastic. And you're saying to Steve and Ian, right, we want one a month, every month. But of course, Steve and Ian were running Games Workshop at the time. One a month is tough to do. Even if you're at I think if you dedicated a month to it, you could probably do one in a month.
Yeah.
But that would be it. And they said, there's no way we, Steve and Ian, can do one a month. So they then started farming it out to other authors. Interestingly, the first non-Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone book was written by US Steve Jackson, which is a bit of a strange thing. So that really caused confusion because it was Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson present Steve Jackson. They were doing one a month and these were selling in vast quantities. And there were adverts in the national press. Got a feeling there might even have been a TV advert. Someone wrote into him and said, "Oh, I've got an idea for a role-playing game." And this was Alex Scott. He was 14 at the time. He was at private school. And he said, "I've written this role-playing game." And when he sent it in, it had a choose-your-own adventure to help teach you the rules. The editor opened up the draft and went, "Oh, there's a game book in it." And so he said, "Yeah, we'll publish this." As I understand it, it sold about 86,000 copies. So it was a role-playing game, and it was quite an innovative role-playing game. So it was published in 1984. Partly it was innovative because it was a historical game. There were obviously historical games before that, but this was Tudor England, and the character classes, I call them character class, the professions, were very mundane. You could be a butcher, or a grocer, or a fishmonger, or a beggar, or a thug, or a priest, or a noble, or a servant, or a whatever. This was very different because all of the other games had fighter, mage, hero, champion, paladin, etc. And all of a sudden, you could then be a fishmonger. And the adventure that is in the book was quite mundane. You had to travel from London to Milton Keynes. Was it Milton Keynes or something like that? It was quite a lethal game in terms of you could die very, very easily. Armor was hard to come by. Weapons did quite a lot of damage. And it also had a very innovative magic system. So there is some suggestion, although people involved with it have said no. There is some suggestion it partly inspired Warhammer because you've got D100 characteristics. So you've got attack skill, and you've got defense skill, and you've got knowledge, and you roll under those on D100. And I know there were other D100 ones, but this had basically your stats were what you rolled against. You didn't have to separate. You did have separate skills, but they just meant you could do things. It had a magic system, wasn't based on a spell list. It was probability based. And this was innovative. It meant you could do anything. To put out a candle is a really easy spell because putting out a candles blow out all the time, especially in a drafty Tudor house. But making a coin levitate off a table is almost impossible. And it's strange because it means that sinking a ship in a storm is actually relatively easy, but lifting a coin an inch off a table is almost impossible because of probability. And so this was absolutely innovative, and it sold these vast numbers of copies. And part of the reason it sold the vast numbers of copies is along the front of it had a blue spine, and along the top of the front, it had a zigzag pattern, exactly the same as that of the Fighting Fantasy books. Thousands and thousands and thousands of the people who bought it thinking it was the new game book.
Yeah, I was one of them.
And of course, if you open it up into the middle, you've got to choose your own adventure. So you open it up, go, oh, new game book, till, pay, get home. And then you start reading it and think, what on earth is this? Which I don't think was a bad thing because it did introduce a good number of people into role-playing that hadn't actually considered that element of the hobby.
And I remember at the time that to think that it was written by a 14-year-old is quite remarkable because it is quite distinctive in style. And as you said, the magic system was like nothing else. It almost preempts indie games and story type games where it leaves the player to use their imagination to convey what kind of magical ability you should have.
And interestingly, it also had a big effect on the early RPG internet interface as well. So I'm old enough. The World Wide Web really came around when I was doing my master's degree, where basically you would have a whole load of pages on one topic. So if you like Dash and Dogs, one page would link to the next, and then that would link to the next, that would link. And if you followed enough of these pages, you'd end up back where you started. But it meant that you saw all the pages about Dashens on the World Wide Web. One of the very earliest role-playing files I remember finding on that very early World Wide Web, and we're talking very early, we're talking early 90s here, 94 or something like that, was a D&D adaptation of the Maelstrom herb list. Because what Alex did was he took a Victorian herbal and adapted all of these herbs for how they might have been used in the Tudor age. And again, what was interesting about these is, whereas a D&D potion list, you have potion of speed and potion of healing, a potion of magic, potion of invisibility. Herbs, some of them did things like they increased your will against spirits, or they reduced bleeding or something like that. Some of them stopped your feet getting sweaty on long marches, or, they stopped your ears ringing if you got seasick. A lot of people said, well, what is the point in that? But of course, you've got all sorts of role-playing opportunities from that. Because if you're a herbalist on a ship and the noble on the ship is staggering about, holding his stomach and groaning, he keeps falling over, the herbalist can go and say, oh, my lord, are you getting ringing in your ears? And yes, I am. Well, try chewing this twice a day. The noble does it. All of a sudden, you have the favour of that noble. And what it does, is it makes it feel more real.
And so Arion Games continues to publish Maelstrom and Fighting Fantasy. And what sense of community is around Arion? How do you support the playing of these games?
Yes, so there's obviously various groups online. There's quite a populous Advanced Fighting Fantasy Facebook group. Has a lot of people posting to it. I've recently started my own Arion Games Discord. I only launched it really a week or two ago, and 100 odd members so far, but it's still growing. Almost everywhere it gets mentioned, whether it's on Twitter or Blue Sky or Facebook or Instagram or wherever, almost everyone knows what Fighting Fantasy is. They may not even have any personal experience of having run a game. A game book. They but everyone seems to know what it is. I meet people at conventions, and they look about 22, and they say, "Oh, I've got the game books," and I'm like, "How? You're far too young." Well, when so and so Scholastic did their and that's how they're into it.
Thank you for spending this time, and here's to 20 more years of Arion Games.
Well, yeah, I think another 20 years, and I'll be around about retirement age. But I suspect, knowing the way I don't like to slow down, I will continue to keep publishing things. And you look at a lot of the older names in gaming; they continue till the day they fail their final saving throw and pass on. Arion Games has got a great future. We've got so much stuff in the pipeline that I think by the time I do retire, we could have 120, 130 different RPG books, different lines, all sorts of different stuff going on.
Well, you certainly inspired me to go back to the fighting fantasy stuff, so thanks for that.
Stick.
Games Master Screen, welcome to the room of role-playing rambling. We're up in the attic. The little pigeon with the white eye is plaintively looking through the window, tap, tap, tapping. And the sun is shining. The leaves are falling, for it is autumn. And this is a bit of a special bit. We've not done this before. We're going to have a review of Super September. I've got Blythe with me.
Hello, Dirk.
And what have we called it, Super September?
Because we've had loads of gaming in September.
I know. It's
Loads of it.
How did that happen?
Don't know. It's weird, isn't it? It kind of all bunched up into September.
When
I've not stopped.
Well, I think when I was calculating, it's like every other day doing something.
Something like that, yeah.
And what's incredible about it is that some of the regular stuff was even going on. So, Play Unknown Armies, that's not starting again till next month.
Yeah.
And we haven't been doing, what else haven't we been doing?
No, Sunday groups.
Sunday group, yeah.
Sunday group's not been going for a bit. It's restarting now, but yeah, that's not been going for a bit. So But maybe that's why. Do you not think it's because some things haven't been happening that we've just overcompensated and done loads of other things?
Well, I think there's a bit of that because over summer, things go into a bit of an abeyance. Because this hobby is a winter hobby because it's indoors.
Yeah, there is a bit of that. Yeah, August kind of. Well, my August was quite busy. I think for that reason, I did things in August because I thought it always stops in August. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe September's felt like a lot because it's never really stopped in August. I don't know, possibly.
Do you not think that it's instilled into you as well? The seasons, the seasonal pattern that you get from school. That somehow
September's always the beginning of things, isn't it? It's like the restarting of things. Yes, there is that.
It's like that song by those people you like, High School Never Ends.
High School Never Ends, yeah. By Bowling for Soup.
Bowling for Soup, yeah. Or, as I call it, men in shorts shouting.
Yeah, that's what you call it. I don't know if they wear shorts. I think they might have worn shorts at times. You don't like shorts, do you?
No, I'm dead against it.
You are quite hostile towards your shorts, aren't you? Yeah. I've never worn them in your presence for that reason because I'm worried what kind of reaction I might get.
Yeah.
A really hostile reaction.
I'm very anti-shorts.
You don't take no prisoners on that, do you?
No. It's a polarising thing, so I don't really want to go into it because, it'll...
Do you think people turn in the podcast off as we speak? Shorts wearers. Clarky. He'll be turning. He likes his shorts, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a man. He's a man who wears shorts in winter.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
I'm trying to hold back up there.
I don't mind a pair of shorts.
There's some kind of toxic topics that we try and avoid.
This is like the shacket. We're turning into like this great sewing bee. We talked about shackets last time, didn't we?
Jackets and shorts.
Jackets and shorts. Call it that. Maybe we've run out of road on this RPG thing. Let's call it shacket and shorts and talk about fashion items that we do and don't like. Yeah. I don't mind shorts as long as they're not too short. The very short shorts are a bad idea. I think the knee-length short is okay. I don't mind it. But I know you have a...
Yeah, I haven't exposed my legs since 1979. I haven't seen sunlight.
Yeah.
They're very pale.
Mm.
Yeah. So what I thought we'd do is, with Games Master screen, I'm going to erect this in front of me, a special September one.
Okay.
And I'm going to hide my secrets. I've got a secret table here.
As it should be.
I'm going to roll on a table.
Yeah.
And I'm going to pick some topics at random so that we can freestyle about the stuff we've done in September.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Okay. I've rolled a 1 on a D6.
Okay.
I'm keeping it simple, the D6.
Yeah, just do a D6. Yeah. Keep it that way.
And first up is new games. So what new games have you played in September?
Couple of games at Albert that were new. Well, one new. One was very new. One was a variation on something familiar. So I played a game called The Hidden Isle.
Hidden Isle.
Hidden. As in hiding, hide and seek. Hidden Isle.
So it's like
a hidden island.
Island. I like
hidden island.
Not a corridor in the middle of.
No, not a hidden isle. No, that'd be very niche. Could be a niche, an architectural niche.
Hidden Isle.
Hidden island. Let's call it that.
I've never heard of it.
No, I'd never heard of it. And when we signed up for games at Albert, I thought, well, it sounds all right. It was the Friday afternoon game, wasn't it? A new thing at Albert, because we don't normally play on Friday afternoon, but we did. It was run by Dan Connolly. I enjoyed it a lot. It's based on Forged in the Dark.
Okay.
But I don't know whether this is just my bad memory or whether I've just got used to these games a bit more, but it seemed a bit simpler than Blades in the Dark. It seemed a bit more like a more conventional role-playing game than Blades in the Dark. And it uses tarot cards rather than dice, which seems a bit gimmicky, but actually works quite well. I quite enjoyed the whole experience because it's...
So is this any tarot deck, or is it a very specific tarot deck?
I think it's any tarot deck. You don't have to... I think they sell one with the game, but you don't have to use that. I don't think Dan used that. You can just use a standard tarot deck. It's not custom made or anything like that, no.
So... but what's the setting? What's the setup? What do you do? I'm a player. What do I do?
Okay. The idea is it's set in 16th century Europe.
Okay.
It's a little bit desanctioned. Set in 16th century, well, not 16th century Europe, 16th century world, I suppose. And the Hidden Isle is a place that's in the Indian Ocean, which is full of sorcerers and scientists and enlightened people. And what they do, you live there. So you have a bit of magic, you have some kind of special combat skills. You're kind of elite, I suppose, of people, and you're liberal and enlightened people. And the idea is that you go off into the world to do missions to right wrongs in this tumultuous 16th century world. So it's a world of colonialism and religious wars and the Inquisition and all that kind of thing. And the idea is you go out and put things right that are going wrong. You get your missions through a tarot card reading. So you get tarot cards that give you a clue as to what's going on, and then you get sent somewhere to sort it out, basically. That's it in a nutshell. And there is like magic and monsters in the world. So this fictional 16th century world is very much like the historical 16th century world, but there is magic and there are a few monsters and things like that to deal with.
Scale it back a bit. So what are the tarot cards doing then? Are they determining...
Well, two things.
Right,
so
okay.
Tarot cards. I didn't know anything about tarot cards until I played. So I don't sound like some kind of expert. Didn't really know anything. So tarot cards there's two elements to them. There's cards with like the pips on the numbers, and then there's cards with just pictures on. So like the Death or the Empress or the picture cards give you an idea of the scenario of what's going on. And then the cards with the pips on are used to deal with sort of resolution of combat or challenges or picking a lock or creeping around or persuading or whatever. And basically what you do is your character sheet will indicate how many cards you get. So you get dealt at least one, but if you've got skills, you might get extra ones, or you've got abilities, you might get some more. And the games master gets some, depending on how difficult it is. So you might get 3 cards. Games master might get 4. And what you do, you look at them in secret and you play one of them face down and turn them over at the same time. And whoever's got the best card wins. So if the games master's got a better card than you fail. If you've got a better card than them. And then there's some complications in, depending on what suit of card it is, that can influence things a little bit. But that's how it's done, really. So it's a little bit like, I suppose, like rock, paper, scissors, that kind of thing where a bit like Torchbearer. I think we talked about that a while ago, where you basically play a card. And I suppose the interesting thing about it is all the players have a couple of what are called fortune cards. So they have cards that they can play at any given point. So if you fail, another player can play a better card and say, actually, no, we succeed. So that's an interesting element of it. And I suppose what's interesting as well is it says in the rules that as a games master, you don't have to play best card.
Right. Okay.
So you could have 4 cards and think, well, do you know what? Picking this lock, it's not that difficult. I'm not going to play the best card. I'm going to play a slightly worse card and make it easier for them.
Right.
Of course, they could still fail because they could still have a worse card. The difficulty is, to some extent, governed by how many cards you get as a games master to pick from. But equally, you can augment that difficulty by not playing your best card. You can play a slightly worse card to give the players a bit of a break, to make it easier for them.
So it's a bit of a pacing mechanic as well for the games master.
I suppose, yeah. And when we played it, at the end, fighting the big baddie at the end, Dan would play best card every time because he said this is like a monster, this demon we had to fight, play the best card every time. But other points, I think one point we might have been sneaking through somewhere and he said, well, there's a lot of people, there's a bit of noise to cover you. So, he played not such a good card to make it easier for them. But I really enjoyed it actually. The setting's there's a lot of flavour to it. The setting's quite good. It's an interesting setting. And it's an interesting, like you often say about these games, that idea of what do you do is very clear in it.
Yes. Yeah. I like the idea that kind of an elite squad.
You're an elite squad who are sent out into the world. So you're sent to Spain, and there's the Inquisition and someone's been taken prisoner and you've got to kind of rescue them. That's your job. Off you go. It's quite good, quirky system. But
it must be good because you immediately went out and bought it.
It arrived the other day, actually. I had to order. I don't know where the company. It's very it's quite an obscure game because I don't know if the company are based. The game came from Poland, but I don't know if the company who made it are based in Poland. I don't know if they're based.
Quite a lot of books are published.
Yeah, I think they might be based
there.
In my head, sure, Dan said Austria. I might be wrong. There, but they're based in Europe. It's a beautiful, beautiful rule book. Came to it without knowing very little about it and wondering how this tarot card thing. But it's not as complicated as you think. Everyone's got a bit of magic. Maybe that's why I liked it, because I always like playing a wizard. But everyone, even the warriors, got a little bit of magic that they can do, that kind of thing. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Good game.
Yeah, that's good. At Alba, I ran a game of Blade Runner RPG.
Oh, new game.
A new game.
New game. What did you think of that?
I didn't get the Kickstarter. I resisted the Kickstarter, even though I am a massive fan of the first film of Blade Runner, as you know. It's one of our core.
It is, isn't it?
Films,
when we were kids, yeah.
Defined our imaginations a lot. That is very important in terms of the way I see science fiction and visualize science fiction. Yeah. And so the Free League book is really well presented. The artwork's really good. It's one of these that is. They kind of make a lot out of a little in terms of the background, where it's sat between the two films really. So it's at a point where there's a transition from the Tyrell Corporation is expired and they're moving towards Wallace and the reintroduction of replicants into the world after a period when technology went into abeyance because people moved over to analog because it's shut down. But now there's a parallel to our current life. Everybody's saying that really for us to become more productive and a better economy, we really need to embrace technology in the form of these replicants. And so as player characters, what you're doing is working in conjunction with the UN, which are trying to make sure that these replicants are economically viable. And you're working with the company, so Wallace. So you're really just an adjunct of that corporation, just making sure for reputational reasons that replicants behave themselves.
All right, okay. Yeah.
It is a good setup, and I know that similar to Alien. It feels quite limiting, doesn't it? But I think with the way that it's pitched, it opens it up a little bit more.
Could you play a replicant on the run?
The way that it's geared is that it's investigative, so you're playing the police. So
like police procedural investigation thing.
It's very much that. It's very much that. So you could push a replicant on the run, but it's not really in the spirit of the game mechanics. You're really on the side of law enforcement.
Yeah.
And if you've got a problem with that, you're not going to like Blade Runner. You know,
you're playing the authorities, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's a strange thing with Blade Runner. I think when I first saw that the game was coming out, my instinctive feeling was, wouldn't it be fun to play a replicant on the run? From an RPG perspective, as a party of replicants on the run. In a way, when you think of the original film, isn't it better that the player characters were Pris and Roy Batty and the other two? They're better player characters in a way than Rick Deckard, aren't they? Because they're on the run, and that's more adventuresome, isn't it? There's more adventure in that.
They have more agency in what they're doing because they're the rogue actors, aren't they?
Yeah, you're rogues. All you're trying to do is survive and not be detected and not be hunted down. Kind of more fun in a way because you think, well, yeah, that'd be good. You'd be on the run.
You can play replicants, but you're a replicant working on behalf of the
Yeah.
Obviously, your characters depending on the archetypes, because it's really easy. You've got a set of archetypes.
Yeah.
You might have depending on the archetype that you adopt, have a different attitude towards being a law enforcement officer. You might not necessarily be a straight down the line officer.
Rick Deckard, you might be fed up with it or question the morality of it. Yeah. That'd be quite interesting.
Being burnt out agents. During the game, the backgrounds of the characters, you realise that that's an important element of it.
Yeah.
And in the space of a one shot, so you 3 hours that you've got in a one shot, you've not really got enough time to explore the element of it, which it really hinges on.
Yeah.
All games you can run as a one shot, kind of, in a convention one shot.
Yeah.
Of course you can, but it's whether you're getting the best out of the game.
Some games are better than others.
Yeah.
As in a one shot. Yeah.
And to me, it feels like one of those games that is best suited for long, languorous interactions with NPCs, moving into different locations, having a bit of space to explore the locations.
Yes, I think that's true of a lot of games, isn't it? That you sometimes in a one shot only getting 2/3 of a game.
Yeah,
you get a schooner of a game, aren't you?
A schooner.
2/3 of a schooner, like 2/3 of a pint. Apparently, is a schooner. Isn't it? You get a schooner of a game, aren't you?
It's shrinkflation, so you get a schooner, same price as a pint.
And I suppose that Hidden Isle was like that because there's some rules in it that I like about. You've got like what's it called now? You've got something like a virtue, and you've got like a bad thing, and you can lean into those to get extra cards. And in a one shot, it doesn't really matter. But when you read the rules, there are consequences to doing that. So these things can become more long-term problems for you.
Yes.
But of course, a one-shot doesn't matter. You've got a virtue and let's call it a vice, but a burden, that's it. You're a virtue and a burden. But if you lean into a burden too much, it can become a vice, which is worse. But that's more of a long-term thing. In a one-shot, you don't really get that idea at all.
Yeah.
You know, and it has like downtime rules. You go back to the island after a mission and you do downtime things. Because you don't do that in a one-shot. So.
Well, I tried doing some of the downtime activities in Blade Runner because it does use a really good pacing mechanic called shifts, and I know that they do them in Dragon Bit.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
But they work a bit differently here. Mechanics that you could easily port across into something like Call of Cthulhu or any investigative game where you've got 4 shifts in a day. And you've got to really, one of your resource management is how you use that time.
Yeah.
Because if you work more than 3 shifts, then you start to get stressed and you start to take on more
sleep deprivation.
Food deprivation.
Yeah.
But what it means as well is that it encourages the players to split up. Because if you're using those shifts, you're not going to go mob-handed to every single scene.
Yeah.
You can split up and cover more ground.
Yeah.
And also you can use those shifts to set the pace of forensics. So you can say, you can take that to the lab, but it's going to take
2 shifts.
2 shifts for it.
When you'll find out
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. 'Cause I suppose that is one of the things, isn't it, in those kind of police procedural things, isn't it? Time. And I was talking to someone about, I was talking to Jeremy about this. He played Blade Runner, he really liked it. And he said one of the things is the shifts. If you decide, when you decide to sleep, something could happen in a shift.
Yes.
But because you have to sleep, you don't,
Yeah.
you're not there. So you just find out about it afterwards.
Yeah.
So it's like a set pattern of things that will happen. And if you're not around on that shift, it will happen anywhere.
Yeah.
You miss
So as a games master, what you're doing is populating the shifts of when the bad guys are going to make their moves.
Yeah.
So that's all predetermined. So as you say, if you're not available, that action is still going to take place, but you may not necessarily.
I think you need to run it. I need to run it. I need to play it.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to play it.
If I'm going to run it, I want to do it over 3 sessions.
Yeah.
Obviously, with an investigation, you've got to reach a conclusion. And it feels a bit hurried reaching that conclusion.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want as well is just always to be a big confrontation. And that's what Cthulhu lent itself to, doesn't it? Call it Cthulhu.
Oh, it's building up to the dynamite.
Yeah, it's building up to that moment. Whereas in Blade Runners, it's a bit more subtle, isn't it? Something is revealed.
Yeah.
It might not be as devastating. It just might be a conclusion of just this little narrative that you put together. Yeah. But you need that space for it to build up a bit more, I think. So Blade Runner. Blade Runner and Hidden Isle. Let's roll on the table again.
Roll on the table.
Okay, this time I've come up with a 3, and it's campaigns. So we've got some campaigns on the go that we've got scheduled.
Yeah.
And some of those have resumed.
They have.
And some of those have continued. And we're on year 7, is it, of Pirates?
Year 107. Season 4. Yeah.
This is our winter game that we play on a Saturday morning.
Saturday morning cinema. Not matinee. Saturday morning. It's like Saturday morning sci-fi cinema, isn't it? Saturday morning. But season 4. Which I said would be the last one. I do wonder. Still quite a lot to do. But yeah, kickstarted that in September. That started last week, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think in an earlier episode I said, we need a bit more jeopardy injecting.
So you've got a price on your head now. 10 million credits.
The evil GDCOR.
Terrible GDCOR, yeah.
Which is a kind of corporation who've been on our... we've been provoking them and tormenting them and causing problems for them under the radar, haven't we?
Yeah, they're kind of like GDCOR are a corporate power in the Trojan Reach, aren't they? So they have a lot of finger in a lot of pies. And you as pirates have gone around causing the problems, but you've now you've crossed a line now. I think end of last season you crossed can't put any spoilers, obviously, but you crossed the line to the point where I thought, well, now you've done that. They just want you captured or dead now. That's the end. There's no going back from it, really. No rowing back from where you are now. So I think putting a price on your head is totally a reasonable thing that they would do.
And how much is the price on our head?
It's 10 million credits on each of you, which I know you object to because you think it should be different. No, you think you should get more on your head.
Well, I think there's a false equivalence across characters because I just think that some of us are more of a risk to GDCOR than others.
More of an regular man. But they don't know that yet, do they? Maybe if you made that clear to them, they might up the price on your head. But it'd be interesting to see what happens because it is kind of drawing to its conclusion. But
I just think the offer's derisory as well.
10 million credits.
10 million credits because
they're alive.
They're alive, yeah. But I mean, how much was their GDCOR on their fleet of a starship spend on pest control?
Yeah.
Just making sure that there's no infestation.
That's still a lot of money though, isn't it? 10 million.
Yeah, I just think we need to rethink.
On each, there's 4 of you. So it's 40 million, isn't it? And then some of your associates are on the ship. It's 1 million on them. So you could end up coming out with 50 million if there's somewhat. A bounty only gets lucky.
It took a bit of time just to do the recap, didn't it?
Because it did a bit,
We've got so many, let's call them passengers that we've got in low berth.
Yeah.
Some might describe them as hostages.
Some might describe them as hostages, but they might describe themselves as hostages. You describe them as passengers.
Yeah, just passengers, yeah. Giving them...
But there's still a lot to do. I realised that as we were the first half hour on Saturday, as you were talking, my brain was thinking, oh, okay, there's a lot to do here. Brain was kind of ticking over, thinking, there's quite a lot to do, isn't there? You need to sort that out, and then you need to sort them out. Then you need to sort these 4 planets out who haven't joined the Empire yet. Then you've got the real issue of dealing with the Imperium and the Aslan. So when do we get? Might be 5 seasons this rate.
And we did spend about 20 minutes arguing whether we should change our ship.
Yes, you did, didn't you? You want a bigger ship, one of the bigger ships, don't you? But they're all attached to. Yeah. That reminded me of a TV show. It reminded me of like a TV show where the characters have got a ship.
Yeah.
And it's some production meeting where it's let's give them a different ship.
Yeah.
But it would be the same, would it? It's like the season 4 of Blake 7 when they got the Scorpio instead of the Liberator. Come on.
I've been outvoted.
You have been for now, but
Yeah, I just think we should increase our firepower.
Ship combat in Traveller is a strange old thing, though, I think, because it's true in any role-playing game that you could have second-level characters in D&D and the GM could throw a dragon against them and people would say, well, that's just stupid, isn't it? That's just stupid because the dragon is just going to make mincemeat of them. And there's a kind of equivalence in Traveller in that some of the spaceships in Traveller, if you encountered some of the ships, your little Harrier would be swatted like a fly.
Yeah.
Some of these, like, I think one of the pirates has a pocket warship with 15 fighters, four missile bays, 20 lasers. You think, you've no chance. But that equivalence kind of breaks down because the difference is, in a fantasy game, those terrible monsters like the dragon, they're not walking down the street, are they? They're in a cave somewhere. Got to go looking for them, haven't you?
Yeah.
But in Traveller, those ships are floating around.
And they're going to come looking for us.
They could come looking for you. And they're floating around, aren't they? So they're there in the Trojan Reach. Those warships and battleships, they're floating around. So they're not hiding in a cave. So you could encounter one. You encounter one, you've no chance. So it's it's an odd thing that power dynamic of.
And I don't want to reconstitute the debate, particularly with you, because you've no skin in the game, haven't you? But that's the reason why in our fleet, we've got the pocket warships.
I've got some pocket warships. Yeah. But that's Aslan mercenaries. You might upset that. But you've got some good ships that you capture.
Good firepower, yeah. But we're having this piddly little Harrier, which I must admit is decked out quite nicely.
It's a nice ship, yeah, but I know what you mean.
Yeah. The fixes and fittings won't matter if we're blown out of the air. Anyway.
Stop making your case through the podcast. No one's interested. All right. The decision has been made.
The other campaign that we've restarted, it has been in fits and starts, and this is mainly due to scheduling, and that's the Barella's Connection, which is the Fall of Delta Green game that we've been playing. My intention was to finish the campaign within 12 months. We're on the second operation, and we're only about halfway through it. And we've been playing it quite a bit. It's just, as we were saying earlier about investigative games, I'm finding that it is better if they've got a bit more space to breathe.
Yeah.
As you know, classically, I'm a person who kind of wants to get the pace moving and get you moving through events and encounters.
Well, I think
it just doesn't fit in that scenario.
And I also think with that Borealis Connection, it does feel like the real world. So there's a lot of detail. So unlike some games you might say, okay, you go into old London Tower and Victorian London, whatever, and you go to a couple of places. Fine, you can move it along. You'll say British Museum in London, the Victorian era, whatever. But in that we're in like Saigon, aren't we? And it feels there's a lot of detail in there. So as a player, you're thinking, oh wow, there's all these things, there's all this stuff.
Yeah,
I'm trying to investigate this cult in Saigon. But there's all these options because it's done in quite a detailed, realistic way, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of moving parts in the city.
Yeah, and I think that's what slows it down a lot because as a player, as player characters, you're kind of umming and ahhing about, what we can do, who we should talk to. Maybe we should talk to them this time. We haven't talked to those people over there, but they are there because there's this detail and layers. There are a lot of layers to it, aren't there?
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of games, even if they're set in the real world, supposed real world, they're often like a simplified, distilled down version of it, aren't they?
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
And I think what I've come to appreciate is that those layers, normally I'd probably put them to one side and think, let's just focus on the points of action. But what I've realised in building those layers up, it's increased the sense of alienation that you feel because you're there on your own doing a secret mission.
Yeah.
With all these different agencies that you can build up alliances with. But ultimately, you feel very estranged from all of the people who are operating because they've all got different motives. And I find that interesting because you've had to pick your way through it to find your allies and who you trust.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that does slow it down. It's not a bad thing that it slows it down, but it does slow it down, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If we'd have gone to Saigon, someone would have said, right, well, there's a couple of people in Saigon that you could speak to, and there's an old house on the hill that everyone's suspicious of. All right, so we've got to go into the old house and we've got to speak to these two people and find things out and then go to the house. Right, okay, that's what we do.
Yeah.
But it's not like that.
And you've encountered some other Delta Green agents.
Yeah. Again, it complicates it. It's quite complicated, isn't it?
Who've offered to switch missions.
Yes. Yeah.
And put you in a compromising position of, do we do this? Do we trust them? Or are we being played?
Yeah, it is. It's quite a thing though to write, isn't it? It's Ken Hite, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the concept's by Ken Hite, but I think Gareth Ryder Hanrahan has written the actual.
Trinix, there you go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'll be paying it for 4 or 5 years.
Hanrahan's got us hostage in 2 campaigns. What's going on? He's made us hostages 2 campaigns he's written.
Send help.
Ignore this. It's a rug covering a hole.
Let's roll again. We've got face-to-face. So we mentioned Alba and the Wizard Staff, which is a convention that we attended.
Yeah.
But we have played quite a bit of face-to-face this month.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? Yeah.
And that's kind of rejuvenated me, I think.
Yeah.
Got me more excited about playing.
Yeah.
I think I've explained that over the last couple of months, I had a bit of GMitis, but I think playing face-to-face and meeting people really does revive it in you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's great playing online because obviously you can get more gaming in and you can play with different people. And, like Pirates doing accent, playing with Mike who's in Sydney, you think, well, you could never do that face to face, could you? But so it's a great thing playing online. But yeah, playing face to face does. It's a different experience. It's better. Oh, face to face is better.
It's different. It's different.
That's kind of like, I don't mean to kind of like points gone and all the online stuff. It's not really the case, is it?
I went to Birmingham to Glorantha Games, which is the convention set up by Pookie and Darren Happens, and I had a good day there. It was very restorative because there was somebody who was on the first game. I wasn't running it. I was one of the players. It was completely new to the game.
Yeah.
So not only new to Glorantha, and one of the ambitions of the convention is to introduce people to Glorantha for the first time. So existing role players, but also to try and attract some people to role playing for the first time. And you realise when you meet somebody for the first time what an uphill task it is just explaining
a role play game.
Yeah. So I think to begin with, they started trying to explain Glorantha, and I thought, hang on.
Whoa, that's not a good start.
Yeah, let's just take it back. Let's just explain how these dice work.
Yeah, the dice work and what the whole basic concept of a role-play game is.
Yeah.
We get into Glorantha.
This guy said, so will I have a script? Have you got a script prepared? And we said, well, no, there's not a script. You've got a character sheet, and this is how the dice work. And just grasping that, you realise how difficult it is to start.
Yeah.
Where you're intrigued by what's happening, but you're going to try it for the very first time. Wow. It was really startling to think, right, there's a lot to cover in this very short time.
you take it for granted. How hard can it be to get your head around this?
Yeah.
Come on, it can't be that difficult. But you don't realise people who come at it and don't know anything about it, don't know nothing about it, might just go, oh, what on earth is this? I think back in the day, you were a bit more aware of that because you met more people who said, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
But nowadays, because there's more people who kind of know what it is, they might never have played it, but they have an idea of it, D&D being like shorthand for it. You kind of assume, well, it wouldn't be that difficult for people to get their heads around it. But it is. It's just as difficult as it was back in the 80s. If you've never encountered it, you don't know anything about it, then, if you've listened to Critical Role or you maybe have played a PlayStation game where you're a character, that you're going to have a better understanding of it. But if you've not done those things, then you would come at it and think, well, I don't know what this is. Why did this work?
So, from that experience, I learned that it's not good to start with how Waha's rope established the food chain in
It's never a good idea to start with that. Even with experienced role players, let's face.
Better off starting as this is how a D4 works.
Yeah.
Other face-to-face game we played Planescape. We played 5e.
We played 5e at MortCon, didn't we?
5e. We should say that it was 2014. None of this newfangled stuff.
Oh, no, it wasn't the new D&D, whatever the new D&D. What's the new D&D called? See, even it's an old man. I don't even know what D&D.
So it's 5e14, not 23. Is it 23?
Is that how it's referred to?
I don't know. I think so. Somebody asked me if it was 14 or 23. And
14.
14. Yeah, there's none of this newfangled stuff. We're strictly old.
We're grognards. We're playing
5e.
It's quite good now, because 5e's become it's an old game now. We can play that now, can't we? Yeah, that's okay then.
It's the first time I played it for a long time. Must be about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. We played a lot of it, didn't we, at one point? But I've not played it. I played in your game at MortCon. It's the first time I'd played it for a while.
So just say first that we did it in Planescape. So it's your first game at Planescape. I run quite a bit of Planescape. Yeah. Well, that's your first. Yeah. So what did you make of that?
I quite enjoyed Planescape because I felt that it rationalised the daftness of D&D.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about this before, where the problems with D&D is, particularly 5th edition, it's full of like monsters and, the genies run the local pub and the elves have got a bakery. There's a demagogue down the road who's sells shoes.
Yeah.
And you just think, well, what is this stupid? This is just bizarre. But the Planescape idea was good because it is a slightly surreal world, isn't it? It's like this sigil, this city, and all these doors to different planes of existence. And it sounds weird to say it all makes more sense. Because obviously it makes less sense because it's all completely over the top fantasy. But it makes more sense for D&D to be set there than it does to try and set it in some pseudo-medieval village.
Yes. Yeah.
Where, like, say, a genie runs the pub. Stupid.
Yeah.
So I thought it worked very well. I felt that it was a good setting for D&D. It kind of married the game and the setting together quite well. So like that, when I think a Modron came into the tavern, didn't it, to have a drink? But it was all right because it's an extra planar existence where there might be a Modron who's visiting from another plane because there's all these doors to other. So that's fine. That's okay, isn't it? So I thought it worked very well. And I liked it that we ended up going to hell, didn't we?
Yeah.
And met devils and stuff like that. And it's always kind of good with D&D because even back in the day, you would read the monster manual and you'd see all the devils and demons and read about Abyssal and all these planes of hell, and you thought, good to go there.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. Sounds fun that it's like full of weird monsters and again, just weird stuff that works perfectly for D&D because it's perfectly acceptable because you're in hell, aren't you?
Yeah.
If you find a talking skull on a post, it's fine because you're in hell. You don't have to worry about what the hell is that doing here.
Yeah.
It's fine. So I thought it was it's almost like perfect setting for D&D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Played Love Letter, which I've run before.
Yeah.
Where you've got to deliver, unknowingly, you've got to deliver a letter to a succubus who's trapped.
Yeah.
It's like a Romeo and Juliet between a devil and a demon.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But quite good fun. Good fun. I did enjoy it.
Good fun. We didn't get that thing with D&D, though, did we? Where it quickly all came back, all that thing of consulting the rulebook to see under what circumstances things were applicable.
Yeah. It just always descends as a weirdly tactical game, D&D. That's the thing with it. It all becomes like very tactical.
It wants to be. It wants to be a role-playing game. But ultimately, it always ends up with, well, yeah, I'm sorry, you're not within 10 yards of...
Yeah, you're not within 10 yards and it isn't a Tuesday. You haven't eaten a ham sandwich, so you can't cast that spell. Oh, okay, all right then. Yeah. But then again, if he moves within 5 feet of you, you can. Okay.
But the other remarkable thing is that you played the sorcerer.
I did the sorcerer, of course, yeah. And I cast at the wild magic table. I managed to. I wasn't even casting fireball, but the wild magic table, when I fumbled, gave me a fireball cast on myself.
A fireball cast on
myself, yeah.
Which you managed to
just survive by making the saving throw, taking half damage. Otherwise, I would have been toast.
Yeah.
But
we reflected, didn't we, that it didn't seem like fun that happened.
No.
But yet, this month you'll have played more DCC as a zealot, of course.
Of course, I've played in Andrew McDonald's game of DCC. That was the Sunday after MortCon. I played DCC. So face to face again.
So when that kind of mishap happens in DCC, everybody has a big old hoot about it, don't they?
Yeah. It's odd that, isn't it? It's odd. It's odd to compare the two things, isn't it? Because that happened in not this session, but the last session of DCC I played in Andrew's game. My very first roll for my wizard, the very first spell roll was a 1. So it was a fight, and I said, "Leave this to me. Stand aside." And I rolled a 1, and it was a misfire of charm person, and I ended up convincing one of the other player characters was charmed into thinking that he was in love with one of the monsters. So the whole fight went pear-shaped because he was then in love with one of the monsters, started defending the monster, kind of thing.
I suppose that's a more prosaic result than having a fireball.
It is. But there are... but maybe that's the thing, though. Maybe that's what it is in DCC. Is it the results of the fumbles and misfires of spells and things like that are more colourful, perhaps, than just casting a fireball on yourself?
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of misfires in DCC, so maybe there are similar things that happen. Yeah. But I don't know. It is odd. I think maybe it's the spirit of the game, because I think with D&D, like going back to what we were saying before, sometimes it just feels quite like a tactical war game type feel. So when you cast misfire a spell, it's just annoyingly inconvenient. Whereas in DCC, there's always a lot going on. There's a critical here, there's a fumble there, there's a mighty deed dice being thrown to smack the baddie in the face with the shield, or doing, you know what I mean? There's more going on in it than in D&D. D&D sometimes just feels like a bag of hit points, and it just slog them down. Whereas when I played DCC the following week, there were fights, and there's armor class, and there's DTs. There's similar. It's the same thing, isn't it, really? But for some reason, more seems to happen.
Yeah.
And the fights just seem more colourful and more engaging, I think.
I do think as well that a setting such as Planescape, which is very creative. I think Monty Cook was one of the writers of the original one, and you can see the essence of that he experienced in Numenera of inventiveness and doing things a bit differently and being able to let your imagination go wild. I think DCC would fit quite well with it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I bought the Planescape 5th edition slipcase, which is beautiful, by the way. Beautifully done, but also a bit rubbish. A bit rubbish in that it's beautifully done, but the writing isn't great in it. And it's very thin. It's mainly the production quality is really good. The quality of the paper, quality of the entire thing is really well done. But there's a campaign with it, for example. I thought, I'll just run it. We'll run a big book campaign, but it's really poor. It's really poor. I'll tell you how poor it is. It starts with amnesiac players. Come on.
Oh no.
Come on.
Mind you could be right actually. I mean it's a good point that, because that was when I played DCC the other week with Andrew, the scenario he ran. I don't know which one it's one of the modules. It's Blades Against Death, I think it is. Not what I've read, obviously, but playing it. But the setup of that was very, very good. So it was like you had to go into a temple and steal his sword, right? But the sword had to be blessed by a ritual in the temple. So you couldn't, there's a massive ritual going on, hundreds of acolytes, and there was this sword somewhere in the temple. You walk, you see the ceremony taking place, but the sword isn't there yet. So you think, well, where's the sword? Got to find the sword. But equally, you've got to let the ritual take place to bless the sword before you steal it. So, and you got too many acolytes to fight. So how do you get this blessed sword out of here after the ritual? And it created a really good kind of debate amongst us. Someone said, "Oh, let's just go and kill all the acolytes." I said, no, you can't kill the high priestess because she's got to bless the sword that we've got. It's got to be blessed. The sword's got to be blessed before you steal it.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. Maybe sometimes it's that setup of the scenario, because I was saying to Andrew afterwards, on paper, maybe it doesn't seem like it's such a big, you got to go into a temple and steal a sword. So what? But the setup was such that everyone started being quite inventive about how are we going to do this? How do we get out of here alive with the sword, avoid all the cultists, but equally let them do what they need to do so they can then steal it?
Yeah.
We tried to find the sword with a view of switching it, thinking we could just switch it, but that didn't work. So maybe that's it. Maybe sometimes it's
the juices of the scenario.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yeah, maybe that is exactly it. Yeah.
Do you do mild?
Okay, the last one is a critical.
Oh,
and this is
critical on a D6. Have you done that?
With some modifications.
Oh, because you rolled a 1 before, so that would be a 6.
I rolled a 6
with a modification.
So you subtract it. It's because the pigeon is at present, so I adjust it.
Okay, it's a good job that GM screen's there isn't forming a psychological barrier between me and you, so you can pull that kind of stump. Go on, a critical,
Critical question.
Go on.
Can you have too much of a good thing?
My wife thinks she can.
Yeah.
Because she's rolled her eyes a bit this month, going, "Oh, you playing a game again? What's going on here?"
Yeah. Mrs. the Dice just assumes that I'm playing.
It's quite a surprise when you're not. Yeah. I've had a bit of that. A game tonight? No. Oh, really? Really? Okay.
Can you have too much of a good thing, though? Because we managed to schedule this in, and this is probably the most we've played in 1 month, do you think?
Yeah, probably, yeah. It's a lot of gaming. What I've been very aware of this month is I've played a lot of games, but I've played a lot of games with people I like and get on with, and that makes a difference. That makes a difference to the experience.
Very few of them have been with me.
Yes, it's funny you should mention. So that's not true. I played in your RuneQuest game at Albert. I played in your 5th edition game. And I played in your... You say that.
Yeah.
You say that. That's not true. It's all... But do you think sometimes that is the essence of it, isn't it? The idea that you're just playing with people who are good players.
And you're familiar with as well.
Familiar with. At Albert, I played with some people I didn't know, but they were quite engaged with it and they were okay and good players. And it's all... When I say good players, that just sound like some kind of Olympic sport, doesn't it? Say, I was playing good players. They were excellent. They were players at the top of their game. Premiership players, none of your amateurs. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is they were nice people who engaged with the game and had fun. That's what I meant. No, I don't mean it in a snooty kind of, as long as they're good players, then you can have fun. But if they're people who've, walked in off the street, that's going to be rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not, I don't mean it like that. All I mean is people, I think, oh, you're all right. You're all quite nice. We're having fun. It's okay. No one's kind of being a smart ass and no one's being difficult. No one seems bored. It's all moving. You're all taking this in the spirit with, like when I ran Mutant Year Zero at Owlbear, there were some people I knew, there's some people I didn't know, but everyone got on board with it in the right spirit. And that's why it was enjoyable. I think like we've said before, what you can't eliminate from role-playing games, it is a social experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be fun and it's supposed to be a social experience. And that counts for a lot. I think if that's missing, then you can have too much of a good thing because maybe it's not such a good thing.
There are elements of it that can become a bit of a chore, isn't there? So preparing.
Yeah, preparing.
I mean, this month I must have created about 14 pre-gens.
Yeah.
And that to me is a chore. I don't get any fun from doing that kind of thing. Where I get the fun is that social engagement.
Yeah.
But if I'm so knackered from actually preparing the game or the game's not straight in my head, that can diminish the...
Well, and I think I'll go back to like this Super September that we've just been through. I would say the best thing about it is it's been a good mix of running games but playing games.
Yeah.
So I've run some games and they've been good and I've enjoyed that, but I've also played games.
I think that's the risk of overscheduling. You got to make sure that you got a balance between what you're running and what you're playing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You want burnout, do you?
Not burnout.
Burnout. GM burnout. That's like buying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Different thing now.
There's an article in The Guardian today.
Is there?
On the 30th of September, the end of this Super September.
Is there?
And it says, hate your job but can't afford to leave. And it gives you 20 tips.
Does it? 20 tips? Yeah, go on.
Well, I'm not going to give you...
You're not giving me them, no. I don't hate my job. I don't hate my job. I can't afford to leave. But I bet don't hate your job, but still can't afford to leave.
Well, I think it is... the thing with it, though, it's one of those... It's almost could be AI generated. If we sat down here, we'd be able to come up with 20 things.
Yeah.
And they're not quite as infuriating as some Guardian things. You read the Guardian articles, everything you like is shit.
Everything you like is rubbish. Yeah, look at so it always ranked, isn't it? Ranked things you like ranked in the wrong order. Thing you love the most at number 40.
Yeah, because you know nothing. You know
nothing. This is the thing you like least ranked 1. Of the thing you've never heard of ranked 1. There you go. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of the 20 suggestions are really about reframing what you're doing and rewriting it and adjusting it so that you're doing the things that you like doing. And I think that goes for this, doesn't it? So can you have too much of a good thing? Only if you let it take over. You've got to be in control of having, and you've got to be able to determine the bits that you like about it to make sure you're doing more of that.
Yeah.
And less of the stuff that you don't like.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You should aim for things you enjoy.
They call it job crafting.
Job crafting.
Or as I like to say, crafting a jobby. Same shit, different day. Right?
Oh dear. On that bombshell.
October awaits.
Off we go.
See you, bye.
Bye.
Hello, Grognards. This is Mike Mason of Mason and Fricker's Eldritch Stories, and I'm just here to tell you about our new season of Eldritch Stories coming at you. Come and find us at eldritchstories.com.
Keep it Eldritch!
Yeah, you can turn it off now.
Yeah, good.
There isn't another bit.
Well, if you're listening to this when it drops, you'll realise that it's the end of October. Where did that go? I must apologise too, because in the discussion with Blythe, there were a couple of S-bombs. I think we'll get away with it. Hope it doesn't damage your sensitive ears. Thanks to Graham for appearing on the podcast, and here's to another 20 years of Arion Games. There's a link to their store on the show notes. The reason I invited Graham in was to talk about Savage Gladiators, his supplement that he developed for running gladiatorial combats using Savage Worlds. We talked about that, but it ended up on the cutting room floor, as did me and Blythe talking about our experiences in September of running our grand tournament of gladiators. So I'm going to bundle that up and put it in a Dirk's dossier. Now, if you're a Patreon supporter of the podcast, you'll know that Dirk's Dossier is an occasional podcast that I do exclusively for Patreon supporters. However, what I'm going to do as a special treat and to give you an introduction of what Dirk's Dossier is all about is I'm going to put it in the main feed in the next few days, soon after this one drops, as a bit of a sampler so you can see what's in it. It is usually offcuts and me just mumbling and rumbling and rambling on about a certain topic. So when it comes, it'll be me talking about how to set up gladiatorial games and a bit of a campaign around it. Thank you to everyone who has listened to this podcast and those who continue to support it by sharing it with people that you like or people who you don't like, who you think might like what we talk about. We've had a couple of reviews since the last one, so thank you for that. Also, a big thanks to Patreon supporters who chuck a few coins in the beret each month to keep us going, keeps the show on the road, pays all the bills for Discord and hosting and other services, and incentivizes us to continue. Now, as I'm recording this, I'm in the throes of preparing for a 24-hour game of the Dracula dossier. I did say that we were trapped in a Gareth Ryder Hanrahan universe. Yes, I'm going to be running over a 24-hour period Ken Hite and Gareth's classic Knights Black Agents campaign, the Dracula dossier, as part of Grogmeat-ish. So for new patrons, I'm going to reach into the dossier and pick some special items to thank them for their support. So joining at the Fancy Poof level is James Fallows and Dee Ree. Thank you. Joining at So Far So Good is Andrew Walter. If I roll on the dice, he gets a spirit board, a lacquered wooden board engraved with the letters of English and Hebrew alphabets with the image of two grotesque faces. Enjoy. And also at So Far So Good is Andrew Coombs. I just roll on here. Well, he gets John Dee's journal, a fine leather codex with beautifully tooled binding bearing the Cotton family crest in gold leaf. Have fun reading that. Upgrading their membership to a high back chair, like one of those Parker Knowles that you might find in an old folks' home, is Paul Fricker. So what does he get? I'll roll on the table, and he gets a vampire hunting kit. It's a Gladstone bag filled with vampire hunting paraphernalia. I'm sure it'll come in. And joining us at the contour rug level, one of those little rugs that you might find around a toilet, for example, is Lapsed Gamer. And he gets as his special gift, let's roll on here, he gets a portrait of Dracula. There you go, a talking point for any bathroom. Right, well, thank you for that. And thank you for your patience if you've been waiting for this one since September. You'll appreciate it has been quite busy, but don't worry, there's a lot of podcast content to come your way over the next few weeks or so. Until then, adios, amigos.
Sighs caught softly on the kindling wind, her saintly eyes filling with tears, lifting with truth, and then a golden flash like the onset of heaven, leaving her screams, breaking my heart, and in the grip of fire